The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of our guests and do not reflect the views and opinions of Sailor Boy Media or its members, nor does Sailor Boy Media guarantee the accuracy or timeliness of these beliefs, perspectives, and opinions.
This is a rally for teachers and teacher staff, and then workers in general that are really feeling the pressure of possibly losing their jobs.
This is about medical choice. This has nothing to do with should you have a vaccine or not.
Personally, what I hear a lot is people calling the mask mandate tyranny, they're calling it communism, things like that. I understand from where they're coming from, the mindset that they have, how they were raised, why they would believe that, but it's not tyranny, right? If you don't work at the school district, you don't work in the healthcare, they're not going to make you get a vaccine.
It's a kill shot, it's a clot shot, it's a death vax.
This is a new dimension in sound. This is love. As the record plays, love.
Hi there, folks. I'm Keegan Van Hook, and this is Us As We Are. In a recent video, the crew and I wandered into one of the largest protest events we've seen in this area since the BLM protests in summer of 2020. An anti-vax mandate, quote, pro-medical freedom rally outside the Medford Asante Hospital. At the time, the crowd was also very anti-media, and we didn't really know anyone who could get us an in. We talked to a few people, but could not find any medical workers or event organizers willing to talk to the press. A short time after that video came out, I was contacted by Ryan Mallory, who's behind Southern Oregon First, the local scanner group, and organizing events against state COVID-19 vaccine mandates. He said he loved the video and wanted to let me know about their next event. We had an in. Now, at this protest against the coming vaccine mandate for teachers, we'll talk to some of the leaders of the anti-vax movement in Southern Oregon, as well as those in attendance at this rally, about why they believe what they believe, and how they respond to admonishment from outside their circles. Before we get fully started, I just want to acknowledge two things. First, this video is super late. That's because we had a whole host of technical difficulties with it. And then, once it was uploaded, YouTube decided to remove it for community guidelines violations and the medical misinformation that, according to them, some of the people in this video espoused. The second thing is that, yes, we had a community guidelines violation, so this is a modified upload of the video. If it seems like it is leaving some things out, or I cut in places that are weird, it's because that's what I'm doing. It's the only way to get this video to actually appear on YouTube, and I figured that while it's not what I really ideally would like to do, it's a better solution than nothing, so I hope you enjoy the video as it stands now. I'll be putting a link to the original version down in the description. All right, sir, first and foremost, how about you just introduce yourself and explain what is going on today?
Sure, my name is Ryan Mallory, and I'm with Southern Oregon First Scanner Group, a few other online businesses, and this is a rally for teachers and teacher staff, school staffs and those kind of things, and then workers in general that are feeling the pressure, really feeling the pressure of possibly losing their jobs.
My name is Lisa North. I'm a second grade teacher here in the Medford School District, and this is about freedom. This is about medical choice. This has nothing to do with should you have a vaccine or not. This is about choice and freedom, bottom line.
What's this flag?
It's an American Revolution bicentennial flag, and the reason I fly it is because all revolutions start with peaceful non-compliance. And, it's patriotic, it's American, it's got 1776, 1976 on it, but, it's about patriotism, and, that's why I'm flying it.
How about you introduce yourself and explain kind of from your perspective, what is this all about? Okay. My name is Richard Hamilton. I'm with Paradigm Shift in Educational Comedy, media representative. I am also a new licensed paramedic as of October 2020. I'm out here today to support
everybody in their right to choose. I'm out here to support liberty. I'm out here to support freedom of choice.
My name is Joseph Gillespie, and I wanted to come out here to actually support this cause, and it's just really fun to be out here with all the people that actually care about the teachers and all of our rights.
My name's Ryan Schroed. I'm a classical musician. I actually was born and raised in Portland, but I've been in San Francisco for the past 14 years. Moved back here about a year ago. There was an opening with the Rogue Valley Symphony Orchestra. So I took the audition, I won, and then I got an email saying, oh, we'd love to have you, but you gotta show proof of vaccination, so I'm not gonna do that. So, yeah.
I'm Amber Richardson. I'm here, I'm running for Oregon State Governor. I am a small business owner. My office is actually right down the street from here. We have been going to all of the Freedom for Medical Rights protests since they started here in Oregon, and we are very for the freedom of your choice.
My name is Greg Marchese. I've been a resident of Southern Oregon for, 20 years. And I've been an anti-vaxxer. I'm not afraid to say it. We all said it in 2015 when literally a woman in a Zionist bankster family named Elizabeth Steiner Hayward tried to introduce a vaccine mandate for children in Oregon. That was in 2015, and that ignited the anti-vax movement in Oregon. And we called ourselves anti-vax in those days. But over the years of the word war, that's become demonized. But people say, well, I'm not anti-vax, I just hate vaccines and would never take another one in my life. Well, come on, that's anti-vax. I'm anti-vax.
Yeah, well, so we're here at a rally with maybe 500 to 700 people. I'm not exactly sure yet, and it feels really heartening to me that so many people are coming out and speaking up. And I think it's really important to realize that no one is trying to tell anybody what to do. We're just asking for medical freedom and medical choices. So if you feel more comfortable wearing a mask, then you should wear a mask. But we don't want you to tell us that we have to send our children to school in a mask, for example, or that we have to wear them. If you want to get vaccinated, that should be your choice, but that is also a personal medical decision that should be made in the privacy of your doctor's office, and it shouldn't be, your job shouldn't be contingent on it. So we're supporting educators and saying that teachers have the right to choose. So, that's the rhetoric that we hear all the time from the Democratic Party, my body, my choice, but then at the same time, it seems like a lot of people in the Democratic Party are also trying to push people to get vaccinated, a needle in every arm, no matter the risks, no matter the cost, no matter your religious beliefs or your philosophical beliefs, and that goes against the state of Oregon. It goes against the pioneer nature, I think, of most Oregonians.
So are you here in response to the mandate that teachers in Oregon have to get vaccinated?
Yes. Yeah. So this is a rally to support teachers' option to choose, and we're not here against our district. The district's in a tight spot. They have to follow the rules. We're here to ask our district and our school boards to advocate for our right to choose. Medford is represented here, but there's districts all over the valley that are here. We've got lots of friends from different districts. And so we've all done a campaign to write to our school boards too and ask, just stand up for us. That's what we're asking. We know they can't say, oh, you don't have to. They have to follow the rules. But just like, with the masks, they wrote letters, they advocated. There's this egregious overreach that's happening, and we're just asking for that support to choose.
We've heard from Medford School District and the president of the teachers union, and Medford School District doesn't want to get rid of anybody. They want them to get their religious exemptions in. So the real battle is with Kate Brown and some schools like Ashland School District that don't want that exemption, and Ashland School District released their mandate before Kate Brown even did.
I work in healthcare, and it's going to be really difficult come October 18th. We're going to lose a lot of staff. We're already understaffed, and the right to just have a voice and choose your medical rights is super important. In the campaign world, I've been told that this is a really bad idea to take a stance on something, and I said I don't really care. I'm out here for all of them because what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong.
Lots of teachers, well, as opposed to medical workers where we believe 5 to 10% don't don't want to be vaccinated and don't want and to be told what's done with their body. In this case, we're talking 30 to 40% of teachers, and we can't have schools survive with that, and we can't have a hospital survive under this kind of disease this kind of sickness with 10% less. So we're hoping our government wises up, and we're willing to turn out and show them to. Right now there is massive non-compliance going on in France, Germany, Greece, Canada, and throughout the world. They're a little bit ahead of us. I think Americans are better at not complying when it comes to their rights.
I have nothing against a vaccine. I have nothing against people that get it. I have nothing against people that don't get it. But it's a personal choice, and that's all that we're asking, is to maintain that choice.
So if you're okay with answering, what is your personal choice on the vaccines?
I don't have it right now. I haven't decided. Maybe sometime in the future, after I know more about the vaccine and I see what it's done. People in my family are vaccinated, and again, it's a personal choice. And so right now, I'm still waiting to see a full study done. I have friends that have had adverse reactions to it, and I know that's a small percentage, but there's a risk, and where there's a risk, there should be a choice.
So there are a lot of questions, there's a lot of risks. I understand people's concerns. And I'm also out here because people's livelihoods are at stake. I mean, these lockdowns that we've been in since March of 2020 have just absolutely devastated the economy, and people are hurting right now. People are suffering, people are angry, people are upset, and that's understandable, and that's okay. So I'm out here for those people, and I'm also out here for all of the little ones in school, who are in grade school and middle school, who maybe are too afraid to speak, don't have a voice. They're being pushed up against a wall with all these mask mandates. They're being pushed up against a wall with these vaccines.
Tell me a bit about how you got this stuff organized. Back to that first event that we were at back on the 25th of August. How'd you put that together, and sort of what was the thing that motivated you to actually throw this kind of stuff together?
Throughout the pandemic and some of the other protests and things that were going on, me and my friends got people together, 150 to 250 at a time, to have police rallies, concerts and stuff like that, really to get people out to support the police, because they were going through a hard time, and we all know our local cops here, and we don't have maybe the problems that are going on in the news, and definitely not to that degree. So we wanted to show them, like when I was a kid and I was taught to trust police officers and that they're there for you, they need to feel respected. So that's how it started out. And then I teamed up with some ladies from the Maskless Women of Southern Oregon and the Ladies of Faith and Freedom, and we started a show called Wake Up Southern Oregon. By the way, it's not, they have cups of coffee, there's a coffee cup in the logo, but it's not a night show. It's not a day show, it's a night show. It's Wake the Heck Up Southern Oregon. So we started rallying people with that to come stand up for the medical workers, because the ladies were getting a lot of messages from nurses at the hospital that were being bullied, straight up bullied by medical staffs, by administrators and those kind of things. We didn't think it was right. My own mother is a 25-year retired RN BSN for Asante. She's had the shot, she's older, she's got a lot of comorbidities. We want everybody to have their choice. We're not arguing against a vaccine. If anybody wants to take it, that's just fine. And there are some people that probably should. The same thing with a mask, but we are arguing for personal rights and freedoms and religious rights.
So Ryan kind of alluded to that the Medford School District was trying to find ways for you guys to find different exemptions. Could you go into that a little bit?
Correct. So what the state has said is that so you either get a vaccine and prove, with your card, you can take a medical or a religious exception, not an exemption. The wording is makes me a little cautious too, but or you can choose to do neither, and then some sort of disciplinary action occurs. We don't know what that is. I'm waiting to hear what those things are. Our unions are bargaining in MOA to find out what happens for the people that make either of those choices, and we don't have that information yet. And so personally, I'm waiting to see what are the implications of all the choices before I make one.
We all know, including the school district, that a religious exemption is the way to go, because no doctor in the valley will issue a medical exemption because they're afraid of the medical board. So it seems like it's kind of working against the public.
And for you, is this a thing about specifically the COVID vaccine, or has it been vaccines in general?
Yeah, so I'm not anti-vax. I guess there's this group of people called the vaccine hesitants. I've done quite a bit of research on this, and the mRNA technology is a little spooky to me. It's only been out for like what, a year or so, and yeah, it's just, no vaccine has ever been passed this fast. It's never been forced like this before, and hopefully the world's waking up finally to it. You know, it's medical tyranny.
So over time, I came to this conclusion. It took a while, but all vaccines cause harm, and no vaccine has ever helped prevent the spread or transmission of disease or prevent death.
So a lot of the people we talked to at this event have sort of said things along the lines of like, they're not against vaccines, they're just against vaccine mandates. So you go deeper than that. You are against vaccines all outright.
Absolutely. I am 100% anti-vax. Gotcha. People are afraid to say this now because in the word war, that phrase got demonized, and you're a crackpot and you're a terrorist. Claiming that's dangerous.
Well, I think that when it comes to the vaccine, it's your choice. It's your body, it's your choice. I don't think that the government should have any right in saying what you put in your body and what you don't put in your body. And that's one of the things that we see throughout a lot of, they put these emotionally charged issues and then try to kind of divide the community to separate us. And it's not really fair. Like, if it's gonna be my body, my choice for one thing, it has to be my body, my choice for all things, right? And so when it comes to the mask, a lot of people have different feelings about it, but I don't think that there's been any true scientific research or any peer-reviewed studies that show that they work. So I also think if you want to wear it, wear it. If you don't, don't.
And with it being sort of a question of choice, what choice do you personally like to make?
For what?
Just like masks and vaccines.
I'm not going to be getting the vaccine. I am 36 years old. I'm very healthy. I've already had COVID. There's really no reason for me to get it. So I am absolutely not getting it. And when it comes to the mask, I don't wear it.
Yeah, the my body, my choice argument has taken an interesting spot in our sort of political discussions these days, because obviously there's that huge news from Texas about abortion rights and everything, and you have a lot of liberal folks applying the my body, my choice argument to that, but then would be in support of a vaccine mandate in which the choice about your body is a little bit less robust. And then you have the vice versa as well. You have a lot of conservative people who feel that you should have a choice to take vaccines or not, but do kind of want to enforce a certain standard of what an abortion can or can't be.
Yeah.
What do you think of all that?
I think it's really confusing. I think that political lines have been blurred, and I think it's really unfortunate that we think that if you support masks and social distancing and vaccine choice, then you're also a Biden supporter, and if you support sorry, I said that wrong. If you do not support vaccine choice and you support masks, then you're a Biden supporter. But if you support choice in vaccines and you support choice in masking, then somehow you don't follow Biden or you don't follow the Democratic Party. And what I want to say is that this is an untrue dichotomy. The truth is, and you can see it in this crowd, that there are people on both sides of the aisle and who aren't even in the aisle to begin with who support medical freedom. So it's just about health choices and health freedom, and I feel really sorry that it's become so polarized and that people who don't support choice have become so nasty about it. So that's what disturbs me, honestly, is seeing people in my neighborhood and my community saying that they hope that people who don't get vaccinated die. And I've read that it's public information from nurses, and some doctors are even saying that, like, we shouldn't treat them, we should turn them away. And when did we decide that it was okay to wish death on anyone based on their medical choices? I do also need to say that these vaccines are a for-profit medical product and they are not liable. So the companies that are making them are really laughing, in my opinion, all the way to the bank. You know that Pfizer made the CEO of Pfizer made $21 million last year, and there's a huge financial incentive to get a needle in everybody's arm. And it's not that I'm against these vaccines. I think that they are one choice in the medical toolbox, but I'm absolutely against cramming them down anybody's throat. I think that it has to be a choice.
It's a kill shot, it's a clot shot, it's a death vax. And this is based on my ongoing studies. You know, it's not a theory, it's not a fantasy. A lot of people are saying this now, including Sherry Tenpenny and quite a few, Dr. Buttar. You can find a lot of prominent, very knowledgeable doctors, epidemiologists, clearly stating this is a population control agenda. It's not about public health. And that's really I feel like the bottom, the rock bottom insight for us to know about vaccines today.
So you did not get vaccinated, and the symphony is requiring you to do so in order to perform?
Yep. In order for them to hire me, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So basically between those two things, you've decided you do not want to be with the symphony?
Yep, that's right.
How does all that make you feel?
Canceled and just like segregated, and just my livelihood, my career. I've been playing classical music for the past 16 years. I have a master's degree in performance, so I guess that master degree is void now. So teaching can't be teaching in schools. They're mandating with the teachers, and then with the symphony now. So
I am in 9th grade, and it has been a very up and down sort of situation. It has been very weird, really. I wouldn't think that this would have ever happened. Like, I'm just sitting at home thinking about this, and I'm just like, man, this is crazy. I can't believe this. But I'm now back in school. So
are you going into 9th grade, just starting high school?
Oh yeah. I feel like I hope that it's going to be a lot different, but I mean it's always going to be there in the back pocket. So
you kind of think this is just going to be something that has to be contended with as we go on in time?
Yeah, because we're wearing masks now. I think we're going to have to wear masks for a long time.
So you don't want the teachers to be mandated to get vaccines, but how do you feel about vaccines yourself?
I feel like I have no idea what they're putting in me, so I don't want to put it in me.
So if it came down to like succumbing to a COVID vaccine mandate or choosing to work in that industry or not, if you were going to be blocked from being a paramedic if you didn't get vaccinated, which choice do you think you would make?
Oh, I'd absolutely say no to the vax at all costs. That's just me, though.
If it were to come down to either getting the vaccine or potentially losing your job, which way do you think you would go?
I haven't made a final decision on that yet. Part of me is very willing to stand up for freedom, because one of the things that I'm considering is that if I turn in an exception, and I can, then I'm not addressing the problem. The problem still is an overreach of power by our governor and many governors, and it doesn't address our loss of freedom. In every little tiny piece, you keep taking more and more and more, and then we end up in a really bad spot as a country. And I wholeheartedly believe that.
If you yourself were mandated to have to get the vaccine in order to be in school or something like that, what kind of decisions do you think you would make?
I think I would be homeschooled. I don't think my mom would let me get the vaccine, even if I wanted to go to school, because I really want to go to school and actually have fun and experience what I can experience at school. But I don't think I would ever get the vaccine.
So you're running for Oregon governor in the 2022 election?
Yes.
So what's the process for that like? Have you gotten sort of signed up, as it were, and what is that like?
It's actually a long process that I wasn't really aware of. I am just a middle-class citizen. I've been a business owner. I am a medical massage therapist for the last 11 years. And so going into this, I actually had a patient who had called into a radio show and said, I know a person I think that would be really good for our state, and I think she should run. And that's kind of how this snowballed out. And so I went on the John Frederickson show, got to go to CPAC, and all of these really great things, but they kind of just all fell in my lap, which was awesome. And then I learned all the things that go into what it takes. So you need to have your CPA group that follows all of your finances. There is a ton of things to make sure that you do everything appropriately. And for me, I was told, because I am such an underdog, that I have to make sure I'm super squeaky clean, because the moment I make one little mistake, they said they'll try to knock me out. So I'm just making sure I do everything very appropriately, but it does take kind of a lot of stuff to even just to enroll. But actually tomorrow, September 9th, is the official day for anybody who is running to actually apply. So from September 9th to March, that's the application time. May 17th is the primary vote, and then we go November 8th is where we're going to go for our actual voting to see who's going to be the next governor. So I'm really, really excited. I really appreciate you guys doing this interview. This is awesome. I love seeing all the people out here standing up for teachers, standing up for medical.
So what is your gubernatorial platform like? What do you kind of have on your agenda?
So first is election integrity. So I've actually kind of been working behind the scenes with Project Opal. I don't know if you guys have looked that up. That's in Georgia. And so I've been talking with them because they actually got a grand jury to kind of vote on the indiscrepancies that happened in their election in order to kind of scoot around that subpoena kind of stuff, in order to make sure that we can get like forensic audits, make sure that we can get in-person voting. And so in Oregon, we are actually, our hands are tied a lot more than these other states. So for us, if we can get an audit in Jackson County, a forensic audit, then we have more chances of having that nice domino effect to really know what's going on in our elections. So that's kind of where I think that we as a county, we can start with like how we register, and if we can get some election integrity first and foremost, even before 2022, that's like my biggest goal.
And then, well, I guess I'd like to ask, how do you feel your chances are for becoming governor of Oregon?
I feel great, right? I do think that a lot of people have asked me, how are we going to unite the North to the South? That's been like a big question. And I really think that there's a misconception on that there's such a divide. I really think we are all waking up as a community and as a state. Like, things have happened in such a tyranny way with Kate Brown and with all these other mandates, that I think that's really actually causing more of us uniting together, and I feel that that's going to help actually, because we're going to finally wake up and stand up for our rights.
There's obviously kind of a big influx of COVID cases here, especially locally. I think the last time I looked at data, this was shown as being one of the worst spots for COVID right now. How do you kind of see that? And if not a mandate for the vaccine, then how could we kind of combat that?
Well, I think we already are. We have a lot of procedures set in place at the schools. Kids are distanced. They have to wear masks. Adults have to stay further away than the kids do, because the kids still are less likely to contract it, even though they can. It's still showing that kids are less likely, so they can be a little closer together. But adults, we still have to stay 6 feet apart. Our staff room is limited. For eating lunch, there's 2 people across a 6-foot table, and that's it. There's lots of sanitizing going on. If we switch students in between, we have to spray desks. And so we have a lot of protocols set up, just like we did for swine flu and for avian flu. We had all of those kind of things. And so when we do our job and we make sure that kids are following rules and the adults are following rules, then we're addressing the situation. Another thing that I think is very interesting, just in the last couple weeks, there was a study that came out from the Harvard School of Public Health showing the correlation between high particulate matter in the air from the forest fires and the rise in COVID cases. They studied the West Coast last year. And look what we're breathing, And so maybe that's some of why this area is such a hot spot. We can't breathe. You're more susceptible to a respiratory infection in those cases. So which emergency do we address? So I think it's more than just get the vaccine and it all ends.
Question, but the next one would be sort of the huge uptick in people in the hospital and stuff because of the new variant and everything, and how just overrun the hospitals around here are. How do you view that, and how do you think we could address that if not through a vaccine mandate?
Yeah, I don't know that the vaccine is saving anybody. It sure seems like they get the virus too. I've been around hundreds, then thousands, then hundreds of people throughout since I've had it, and I haven't got it. I also keep up on the vitamins and things like that you should take.
Primarily with the ICU beds, as many medical professionals have probably pointed out, or that you've seen, on social media or around, right now there is a huge staff shortage. So even in hospitals that have a lot of beds and high capacity, it makes it a real clinical challenge when you have limited staff and you've kind of got to cut capacity to kind of keep up with what you have. That's why, here recently, the governor herself, she called on the National Guard to come fill in the hospitals because they're facing just such a staff shortage. But that's been a thing going on for years. That hasn't been anything new. They've been running their hospitals and, EMS agencies, depending on where you go, super, super thin. They want to keep costs, they want to keep overhead costs down, so they're cutting back on staff. People that they should have, they don't. So really, is it that there's this, overwhelming number of patients, or there's just not enough people to deal with just the everyday mundane amount of patients that we already do see? I was in my paramedic clinicals last year through my college, which I'm going to keep that out of here because I don't want to mention their name. But I went through paramedic clinicals last year, and the hospitals wasn't any more overflowed than it would normally be. So this whole idea that, ERs are overrunning with patients, it's nonsensical to me. I haven't seen any one day where I would have walked in and gone, oh my God, And that's the other thing about with the ICU bed shortages and, these wards being flooded with COVID patients. I was a med student through the thick of it, going for my paramedics. So, if we're dealing with a virus that has a high mortality, I shouldn't be here talking to you. If we're dealing with something that has a truly high mortality, anybody with a normal immune system that's healthy and functioning, I'm not saying that people aren't getting sick. I'm not saying that people aren't dying from something. Obviously they are. But those of us with normal, healthy immune systems, well, do what you normally do. Wash your hands. If you are sick, distance yourself from others. Go home. Take a sick day. Lay down. Do what you would normally do if you had a cold bug or a flu. Whether COVID or not is real, just do due diligence, take care of yourself, that's the primary thing.
It's kind of interesting to me. So when this actually first started happening, March 15th of last year, right? There was this hashtag going on around on Twitter. It was hashtag film your hospital. So when the news was coming to me, and they were, or not coming to me, but when the news was telling me, oh, the hospitals are packed, this, that, I was like, really? Are they? So I'm gonna go around to the local hospitals in San Francisco. That's where I lived at the time. And I would film the hospital. And it wasn't overcrowded. It was just very strange to me. Like what I was being told and what I was seeing were absolutely opposite. Yeah.
So the other big counterpoint that I hear a lot is the upsurge right now that's going on with COVID counts and hospitals are being overwhelmed. How do you respond to that?
Those are two other aspects of the hoax, fraud, scam, and satanic joke. And the evidence, the data shows this. I respond to that by saying people are in the hospital for multiple reasons. The stress-related damage being done to people by the lockdowns, increased suicides, higher drug and alcohol abuse, domestic violence, and delayed procedures. Patients needed to get medical procedures performed, but they were excluded because the hospitals had to stay open for the alleged surge of COVID cases. Well, they're all surging in now.
The hospitals are overwhelmed. The hospitals are not overrun. And when I say that, what I mean is that hospitals are facing nursing shortages. And so they might not have enough nurses to deal with the cases in the hospital. But I was literally since I talked to you last, I was in the COVID ward of the hospital in Ashland helping as a patient advocate. And every other room was empty. So I saw this firsthand with my own eyes. And when I talked to the nurse there, she said 2/3 of her patients in the COVID ward were vaccinated. So what I heard from on the ground was that the beds were empty, so there were empty beds, and that 2/3 of the people who were in the hospital for serious severe cases of COVID were actually vaccinated. And literally the same day, I was reading in the newspaper that the majority of the people in the hospital are unvaccinated and the hospitals are overrun. So there is a disconnect between what the mainstream media is reporting and what we're actually seeing on the ground.
So when you say that you were like a patient advocate, does that mean you were sort of there supporting a friend who ended up in the hospital?
Yes, that's right. I was basically there as her, to support her and advocate for her and help her through a difficult time.
I'm so mad at the case-demic, as it's been called, like people faking like there's an emergency because of case counts. And additionally, Keegan, The case number is absolutely irrelevant. What matters is the case fatality rate. How many people that test positive die from COVID? Not comorbidities, not old age. That's what matters, the case fatality rate. Is that rising or falling? But they never report that. The media is part of the satanic cult that's running this scam on the world.
One is that for all kinds of different things, like if you enroll in college, there's a whole list of vaccines that you have to have, and that applies to all kinds of different fields, industries, places you go, international travel, etc. In what way is this different from that?
Where this is different is you can apply for an exemption from any of those places. Students have a whole list of vaccines they're supposed to have to come to kindergarten, but a parent can opt out. And there's, steps they have to go through to do that, but they can opt out. They can have that choice. There's no choice given specifically for the COVID vaccine.
In what way is the COVID vaccine now different than all of those things from the past?
Yeah, very easy. All those vaccines have been around for how long, right? Decades potentially, and even longer. So this vaccine, again, it's brand new. Maybe I'll take the vaccine in 5 years after the trial studies have actually been completed, because they haven't been completed.
Where do you get this information?
So a lot of the information that I get is from the Epoch Times, NTD, I got a shout out to War Room Pandemic, Steve Bannon. He's doing a phenomenal job on every level, whether it's about the vaccines or about the financial systems, the Ape Nation with the Dogecoin and the AMC, the GME, the market manipulation, all of that. The November 3rd audit system that's going across this entire country. So he's doing amazing work. I guess that's probably my primary news source. And then you got to look at the mainstream media also, and you got to look at all of it, right?
In order to participate in all kinds of things in modern life, there are certain vaccine requirements. Like if you sign up for college, I know this, you have to sort of fulfill a certain number of those vaccine requirements. Like you have to have a tetanus shot, you have to have, I think, HPV and a few others. In what way, in your view, is the current COVID vaccine different than that? And going deeper with your particular set of views being just completely anti-vax, what's sort of wrong with doing that?
Oh, wow, there's a lot to say. I have to say first that I'm not as aware of those requirements for students as you've mentioned, but I am aware that they often say they're requirements, but they are essentially not. And I don't just mean because there are exemptions people can file for, and absolutely must be allowed to by constitutional law. Religious exemption, what they call personal or philosophical exemption, and of course medical exemption. This is also true when they say you need a vaccine to travel or enter another country. It's misleading. It's designed to be like imposing a kind of authority on people that doesn't really exist. There are circumstances in which it's not required, and people should know that and avail themselves of it.
Okay. All right, you guys. I think you guys are the Rogue Valley Pepper Shakers. I've seen a lot of your work, yes. But how about you just introduce yourself and explain who it is you are and what you do?
Yeah, so we are the RV Pepper Shakers. We do a few things in the Valley. So we do a lot of clinic escorting and clinic support. We also try to help people that are at markets or things like that to defend against the far-right Christian protesters. Also people like Biome who tend to threaten those spaces as well. We go to protests and record and live stream, kind of make people aware of what's going on. But that's mostly the gist of it. My name is Sam.
My name is Torin. My pronouns are anything. But, yeah.
But together we run the Pepper Shakers. We're the only two leaders right now, and then we have a few people that come out with us. But yeah.
So what brought you out to this, and kind of what did you see going on?
Yeah, so the reason we came out to this is because we went out to the last one that happened in Medford before, and we came out to record and live stream so people could kind of get an idea of what was going on. A lot of people didn't want to come out to it because they were worried about COVID, getting violent, things like that. So we wanted people to be aware of it, and we came out to this for the same reason. Coming to the school district, I have people that I know that work here. They were worried about the event, so we came to record, live stream, kind of just get an idea of what was going on so everyone else could see what was happening.
Yeah. And what kinds of things did you see going on?
So a few of the things, most of the reason why we come out is because of the Salt Shakers, the Christian fundamentalist group that comes out. They tend to be very aggressive, and especially in big groups, they tend to feel more empowered. So we keep them in check by recording them, being around them so they don't do those things. We see people like Biome, like shouting slurs, coming up trying to intimidate us because we're wearing masks. That's really the only reason. There's a few people that would like shove their like signs in our camera and things like that, but mostly people yelling at the street and like yelling at us. So that's mostly what we see, and that's what we saw last time too.
What kinds of like opinions and stuff do you hear from these kinds of people, and in what ways do you disagree?
So a lot of the opinions like personally, what I hear a lot is people calling like the mask mandate tyranny, they're calling it communism, things like that. And I understand from where they're coming from, the mindset that they have, how they were raised, why they would believe that. But it's not tyranny, right? If you don't work at the school district, you don't work in the healthcare, they're not going to make you get a vaccine. And they're not going to make you get it anyway. It's a choice. If you don't do this thing, you get the consequences. We all learned that in 3rd grade, right? So for me, that's how it is. But I think, if you have other things.
Yeah. So what was the question again?
It's just like, what kinds of opinions do you hear from these people, and then how do you respond to those opinions?
I mean, a lot of the opinions we hear, like at protests like these, are ones we hear from the salt shakers all the time. That like a lot of comparisons to the Holocaust. Hear that all the time. I saw signs here with like the yellow star on it, comparing it to the Holocaust, which I think is utterly ridiculous. And so we've been hearing these things for a long time, just dealing with protesters, and I find a lot of it pretty funny because it's just so ridiculous. So I don't really have a whole lot to say on it, but I think it's silly.
Yeah, it really is. And because they bring race into it. They bring race into it before anyone else does, right? They say, the Jews and the Holocaust, or this is what we are. And I was like, no, you're not. You can put a star on your shoulder and call yourself that, but like, you are not being oppressed. Like, I understand where they're coming from with how they were raised, why they would think that, but they're not. And I can't get that across to them because it's like the two of us and hundreds of them, So we don't come here to protest them. We come here to ask questions like what you guys do. Just we get a little more pushback.
I also organized a panel in Ashland, at the Ashland Library, after the film Vax, From Cover Up to Catastrophe, with Del Bigtree and who was the doctor, the gastroenterologist, Andrew Wakefield. And I was on the panel. We had 7 people on the panel and maybe 60 people in the room. And my final statement was, the global vaccine programs are the most successful part of a dysgenic population control plan enacted by a cabal of oligarch Zionist banksters. And then I asked the audience, okay, who here agrees with this far-flung radical statement? And I'd say 2/3 of the people raised their hand, and I went, yes.
So probably the biggest thing for all the time I've been covering like this sort of side of COVID has been people on the left saying that among the sort of like anti-mask, anti-vaccine, or anti-mandate people, there's kind of like a Nazi, National Socialist, or a white supremacist connection. And at our last interview, we did talk to the guy over there who's in the hat.
Anti-poison vax, anti-slave mask, pro-family, pro-God, pro-country, pro-white.
And he is sort of directly espoused some white supremacist stuff. So how do you respond to all of that?
Weird people show up to all kinds of stuff. If you were at the BLM rallies, you saw some people that probably everybody there didn't agree with their views. People can call me what they want, but I happen to be the president of a board for a multicultural organization. I have my doubts, and there may be some crazy people, I can show up at any group of people, and you can show up at any group of people, and we see the regular media trying to pull aside the crazy people to characterize different rallies. Well, if you talk to enough people here, you'll find out that there's good, positive people that care about their freedom.
We actually did talk to a guy who espoused some white supremacist kind of beliefs. How do you respond to all of that?
Well, as I've heard Ryan Mallory say, and I've heard others say, when you gather people together like this, that's bound to happen. There are going to be people that come out of the woodwork that you may not agree with. But you know what? As I've always said, the First Amendment wasn't meant to protect polite speech. It was meant to protect offensive speech, whether we like that or not. We're not always going to agree. We're not always going to see eye to eye. But what makes us a free society is that we can all come out, we can all say what's on our mind, and we can all get along peaceably as we're doing here.
So my last major question, reflects sort of a sentiment that I've heard a lot when I report on these kinds of events, and that's that there's some kind of a Nazi or white supremacist or otherwise just sort of like a racist element to what's going on. How do you respond to those kinds of allegations?
What's going on with COVID?
Yeah, like basically people say that when these groups gather, like that are against wearing masks or against getting vaccinated or even just against mandates, that there is somehow like a white supremacist element. And I mean, last time we were at the last event we were at, we talked to Biome, who was here just a little bit ago, and he told us straight up that it was like a pro-white gathering. But then a lot of the people that we talked to, it didn't end up seeming like it reflected that totally. So I feel like there's a lot of like confusion and discord around that question. I was curious how you would respond to it.
I would like to respond more to that question in another interview where that's the focus. I'm actually not hearing that a lot. There's a lot of Christian folks that come out to these things. They believe they've got a God-given immune system, and vaccines are the mark of the devil. You heard this kind of thing, the mark of the beast. I'm not Christian myself, but I can understand their thinking. Certainly we're very white here in Southern Oregon, and that's fine. I'm perfectly fine with that. You know, these are high IQ people. These are well-educated people on the vaccine issue. So I feel like there's much more to say about this, but it's not really related in my mind to the vaccine issue. So I hope we can convene an interview more on that topic another time.
A lot of people have said various things about you.
We're not going to go into that at this meeting because it's not basically what the focus of this is at. Sure. So we want to get into my political philosophy, my political ideology, which is National Socialism, which isn't a big secret anymore. But we're going to schedule another interview so I can prepare myself for that right now.
Yeah. So we talked to Biome Erickson at the last event that was in front of Asante Hospital, and he said all kinds of things. One of which was that like it was a pro-white event, and I tried to ask him a little bit about his like Nazi / National Socialist stuff. He calls himself like a National Socialist. He doesn't like being called a Nazi.
You look like Biome. Yeah, the Nazi. You're the Nazi.
National Socialist.
You're a Nazi.
No, Nazi means.
Wow. Yep. Yes, this is Biome Erickson.
Nice. Well, what's your name?
I'm not giving you my name.
Oh, boo-hoo-hoo.
And then just now we talked to Greg, and he didn't go quite so far, but he kind of talked about like that there's like a Zionist connection, which is like Jewish stuff. Is that everybody here, or is that just a select group? Like, what's going on with that? What's the relationship between like sort of that sort of racism or dipping your toes into racism stuff and the whole like anti-mandate movement?
I think it's hard to tell. So for instance, obviously we know Biome has his very specific beliefs. We have a lot of footage of him doing really gross stuff. And the people that he hangs out with, right? So he was standing on this corner, and as people walked by, he would ask them questions and tell them his beliefs, and he got mixed opinions. But he is completely unapologetic about it. And so are the people he hangs out with. For instance, the salt shakers, who we like protest a lot, they believe the same things. Like they believe this is tyranny and this is like the Holocaust, we're going into slavery, things like that. And I think the dangerous part is like we know those people feel that way. We don't know what any of the other people feel like. So, you know, we had someone come up and was like, "You dirty communists," you know. You don't know I'm a communist. You don't know anything about me. But that's the scary part. So for me, I don't know, and that's scary. But I don't know if
I think that there's certainly quite a few people out here who are white supremacists, who have similar beliefs to Biome in that way. I don't think that's all of them. I definitely don't think that's all of them or a majority of them. I think as a whole, obviously, they're very misguided and they have a lot of opinions I don't agree with. I don't think that most of them agree with Biome as far as the anti-Semitic and racist and homophobic stuff. I don't think that's a majority, but I think there are certainly a lot that do agree with him in that aspect.
There is and there has been for a very long time, a kind of opposing propaganda campaigns to seize on certain words and phrases and either make them supportive of your cause or make them demonizing or destructive of the opposing cause. To take a word that's beneficial or neutral and make it negative is called a pejorative. That is a pejorative word. And now anti-vax is a pejorative. In 2015, we called ourselves anti-vax. But I would also add I'm pro-natural immunity. I can be anti-vax, but pro-natural immune health. And that couldn't be more clear in the COVID phenomenon.
Then what about like a lot of the stuff that I hear you guys getting called? Like just now, the last guy we talked to, he was like, hey, those Antifa people. And then many other things, getting called communists and stuff like that. How do you respond to some of that? Like, A, are you Antifa? B, are you guys communists? Like, what's the deal with all that?
I mean, the thing is when they're calling us Antifa, they're trying to use it as a derogatory term. It's not. Being anti-fascist just means you're anti-fascist. It doesn't mean anything else. It doesn't mean I'm like in an organization, I'm trying to tear down the government or anything. It just means I don't believe in fascism and I think it should be eliminated. They think we're terrorists because of that. They also think I'm a communist because I wear a mask, because they think it's tyranny, which is communism to them. They think because I disagree with them on everything, which the conversation we had with this gentleman earlier, we agreed on a lot of things. Like socialism and communism have a lot in common, right? And we already have a lot of socialism in this country. So that guy is really good friends with Biome. And so he holds a lot of the same beliefs, and Biome already has a lot of strong beliefs about us. But he knows nothing about us. He calls us slurs every time he gets the chance, but he has there's no reason that he believes those things. He believes them because he wants to. So, but we just tell them exactly how we feel. I'm not a violent person. You don't feel threatened by me. So why are you aggressive with me? So that's how we handle it, kind of de-escalation style. But how do you?
I think as far as Antifa, we are anti-fascist. So sure, I guess. I'm very used to the slurs from Biome and stuff. I mean, we saw him at the Saturday market in Grants Pass, and he called us the F slur then multiple times, used the N-word. I'm very used to it, and it doesn't really faze me, but I just think it's silly.
And you need a face shield, a full body covering.
Okay, Biome.
Vaccines up your butt. Don't forget the glove.
Are you into butt stuff, Biome?
No, you're into butt stuff. You're the
Okay.
Aren't you? Told me you were. It's okay. It's just, it's not a bad thing. We don't mean to maliciously. We don't hate you. It just means illness.
It's like talking to a kid, honestly. You have to handle it like it's a toddler, because they're trying to throw insults at you so you give them attention. But if you don't give them attention, they get angry. And they just go away. It's like, it sounds bad, but you have to deal with these adult men like they're children.
In the word war, they would say, if you're anti-vax, you're a terrorist. But that used to be a positive phrase that we used. And I think it still is. I think we should reclaim that. I mean, there's a lot to say about the word war. Chomsky wrote about manufacturing consent, propaganda, the use of words. Of course, there are other things. Linking words with emotions rather than intellect, which is pretty rampant in the COVID propaganda. Anti-vaxxers are now considered terrorists by the Department of Justice and the Department of Defense. The CIA. So people are frightened by being associated with the word. I'm frightened by not using words properly. This is a suppression of free speech in the sense of it can be damaging to a person, to their reputation, to their income if they're fired for it. So it's not free speech. There's coercion involved in using words, but I think it's important to reclaim that phrase in the word war.
I think it comes a lot from how they were raised and how their parents were raised. Like, for instance, the whole anti-communism thing that a lot of people believe in comes from the Cold War, which there's still people alive that were around during the Cold War, and all of that propaganda has trickled down into our current generations. There's people my age that believe that. So I think almost all of it is nurture. You're not born a racist. That's not how that works. So how you're raised, how you decide to go through life, the people that you surround yourself with, that's how I think you become that kind of person.
I don't know a whole lot about Biome's history of how he came to the current beliefs he currently has, but I think in general a lot of it does stem from internet usage and going down rabbit holes and just echo chambers online. I mean, when I was a younger teenager, I started falling down some rabbit holes. Definitely not to that degree, but there were some things that I started believing that I definitely would disagree with now. And I think it's really easy to do that. And with some people, if they don't have influences in their life that can alter that, they just keep getting deeper and deeper and eventually become a Nazi.
So you mentioned that in some of the conversations you've had with people out here, that you actually did manage to find some common ground. And I think I hear that a lot, is that like when people actually get together like in the streets, the sort of dichotomy of like conservative versus liberal or left versus right or whatever starts to break down a little bit. So my question is, like, why do you think there's such a divide along that dichotomy, even though it doesn't seem to be as discerned of a line as a lot of people say? And how do you think we might be able to like climb out of that trap of division?
Right, yeah, and I think, again, from my own personal experience, I think a lot of why people disagree with what we do is because they're falling into these rabbit holes. Like Torin said, it's, you know, you go on the internet and you follow the same people that you've been following since you were a child or how your parents followed, and they have these strong beliefs, and it's so much easier to believe those things than do your own research. So they hear Antifa are violent criminals and they're killing people in the streets and they hate white people and all this. It's easier to believe that than go out and talk to one, you know? So I find common ground in being calm with these people and say, well, do you believe in this? Do you believe in this? That's socialism, you know? So, and that's how you have to do it. And I think if more people talked to the opposite side of things on either side in that aspect, trying to like be civil, it would work better. But no, a lot of people don't want to be civil. They just want to yell at each other. And that's on both sides. Like there's people that I protest with that will never be effective on that side of things. But in my opinion, I think that's the easiest way to do that. Yeah.
I forgot the question again.
It was just about division, and like, you know, we're kind of going down a rabbit hole of there being like this big left versus right dichotomy, but then when you guys have conversations out here, you find that that's a bit of a blurrier line than it seems. Why do you think that is, and then do you see a way out of that maybe?
I think that, yeah, I agree that a lot of times we do find a lot of common ground with people we talk to. Honestly, though, I think as a whole, I don't have a lot of hope that most of these people are going to come around to getting vaccinated or wearing masks or just being decent people in general. I don't think that's going to happen with a lot of the people we encounter out here. I think a lot of the change that's going to happen is going to come from just time, from our generation getting up and getting into positions of power. I think that's what's going to change most of the problems that we're dealing with right now.
Well, so like to follow that, if people can't sort of be brought to a point of agreeing on more of these things, especially when it comes to like really big stuff like the COVID crisis, how can we solve these sorts of problems as a society?
I think in general, in a lot of ways, our species and our society is screwed, to be honest. So I want to do the best I can to help change things for the better. And if that does, if the things we're doing can help in the long run, that's great. And I hope it does, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence that things are going to work out for the best in the long run.
I would say the same thing. It's like at this point with like these big topics, like there's scientific evidence behind like vaccines and like this virus being extremely deadly, especially with the Delta variant, and people are still deciding to follow like propaganda that they're seeing as opposed to actually doing their own research. So it's terrible to say this, but like at this point, we're going to have to wait until people die out. Like humanity has to die out before we can learn anything from what we're doing, because we can't fix this. You can't have a conversation with someone who doesn't want to listen to reason in any aspect on either side. So I don't personally think it's going to be able to be fixed with conversation or bureaucracy. It's going to be an extinction, I think. Yeah.
Well, is there anything that I got that I did not ask about that you guys wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I think, you know, of course, we're going to keep coming out to these things, and we'll probably see you guys out here too. I think it's important that people are aware that this isn't just people don't want to get vaccines, right? It's not people just don't want to wear a mask. People legitimately think that wearing a mask is going to suffocate them and they're going to die. Like, you know, and I feel like a lot of the people that are out here, like you were saying, that are misguided, they believe those things because people out here believe those things. They don't actually like truly want to believe that that's true, because it's not. So I think that's what's important, is spreading true information as much as we possibly can, as much as that might not help. I think that's what's really important. Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to add?
I guess just that, like I don't think that it's going to take humanity going extinct for humans to change as a whole and get better and be able to treat each other better. But I do think that it's going to take, like I said before, our youngest generations getting into power, and I hate to say this, but I don't mean that like I want all older people dead at all, but I think it's going to take older generations dying out, a majority of them to enact change, to actually help the majority of people and to help our environment and all that stuff.
All right, well, Rogue Valley Pepper Shakers, I want to thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, of course, thank you.
All right, well, was there anything that I didn't ask you about that you want to talk about?
No, you guys have been so great. I'm really glad that you're out here and you're doing this. And if you can go on my website, it's voteoregonfirst4amber.com, and just check me out. And yeah, let's just all come together. We can do this. Let's get our state back.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You know, October 18th is the ultimate deadline for like the battle for Oregon. It ends on October 18th when these mandates go into effect, and possibly half the workforce in many industries, healthcare, state contractors and employees, like the people that issue driver's licenses. What if half of them disappear, if they quit? Certainly the healthcare system would implode. Law enforcement, firefighters, forestry, ODOT, right, the street maintenance. If those people quit or are fired, they should wait and be fired. Don't quit. Strategically, it's better to be fired rather than get this vaccine that they know is dangerous and deadly and useless. Then that is like the societal collapse of the state of Oregon. So, to answer your question, that mandate, aside from the illegality and the unconstitutionality of it, the consequences of it they're almost incomprehensible. It's almost impossible to explain or describe or depict the totalitarian dystopian nightmare that will inflict on Oregon.
Well, was there anything that I didn't ask you about that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, it's really bad in Oregon right now, and it's worse in our state than it is in almost anywhere in the country. And I'm surprised and discouraged by that. If we really want to promote lifelong good health for every Oregonian, we have to look at the big picture. We can't just say, put a mask on every child, put a vaccine in every arm. There is so much more to health and to avoiding getting a severe case of COVID than just vaccines and masks. And I'm totally disappointed with our legislature and our governor for not talking about all the other things that people can be doing, including the treatments that we know work and help mitigate the symptoms of COVID. That to me feels like a pharmaceutical funded agenda instead of promoting lifelong good health. We know that eating well, getting enough sleep, and being in contact with other people is actually protective against disease. So why are we isolating people? I mean, these are open questions and open dialogue, but what discourages me is that, for example, with breastfeeding, why aren't we telling breastfeeding women to continue breastfeeding? We know that there's literally over 1,000 peer-reviewed studies that show that breastfeeding is the optimal nutrition for humans. Now that makes good sense, right? We didn't get that wrong. We're mammals. We have mammary glands. We need to breastfeed our children. I have not seen a single politician stand up and say, try to breastfeed your baby for as long as you can because that will help protect your baby, not just from COVID, but from bad reactions to many other infectious diseases. Though that's the kind of public health messaging that I think that Oregon needs.
All right, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for talking to me.
Well, was there anything that I didn't ask about or that you wanted to talk about that I didn't mention?
No, I just want to make it sure that it's very clear that we're not here against Medford School District or any other school district. They're doing their job, and they really are bending over backwards to try and make it as simple as possible. Every district's handling it a little differently. I have to give kudos to Medford because they really are trying to make it easy. I've heard from other people at different districts it's not as easy. We know that they're between a rock and a hard spot. We want them to advocate for us because this is not right.
Well, is there anything that I didn't mention or didn't ask about that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I mean, my closing thoughts would be, give me liberty or give me death. That's kind of, and I regret that I have but one life to give for my country. If it really comes down to that, let's pray not. But that's where I'm at. I stand for freedom.
Well, was there anything that you wanted to talk about or that I didn't ask about that you want to mention?
I would just say that for those of the people that watch this or watch some of our videos online or see some posts and they hate, it's not about hate. Those people that have had the vaccine, I love you. If you wear a mask, I'm not going to shut you down. I love my community, and I love those people even if they don't love me. But if they were actually down here and you walk through this crowd, you'll see a lot of happy people that care about each other.
All right, Ryan Mallory, thank you so much for giving me the time.
It's your time.
Do you think that an end is in sight at all?
I have faith that it is, just like any virus that comes in. We've had pandemics before, maybe not, as hugely played out as this one, but they come, they go. Viruses come, they go, they mutate. That's nature, that's life. So there'll be an end at some point.
About a week after we shot this protest, commissioners in Jefferson County voted unanimously to declare a state of emergency and call on Oregon's state government to withdraw vaccine mandates for people working in public services like hospitals and EMS, citing similar concerns to what some at this protest expressed. Specifically, that the mandates are expected to cause many workers to leave their jobs rather than get the shot. With much of rural Oregon experiencing a surge in hospitalization paired with a high degree of vaccine hesitancy, there is genuine worry that the October 18th vaccine deadline may cause more problems than it solves. Very little about this issue seems clear or widely agreed upon. What is clear is that debates surrounding how to deal with the COVID crisis are growing more complex. Inevitably, we'll be having more conversations about this topic as things develop, but for now, that will do it for this episode. I'm Keegan Van Hook, and this is Us As We Are.
Thank you to our major Patreon supporters: Adam, Alex Zendejas, Amy E. Van Hook, Daniel Van Hook, Elizabeth Austin, Little Number 5, Lucas L. Bankson, Robin Jossie, and T. Langdon.
If you too would like to support production of this program, then please consider becoming a contributing member on Patreon at patreon.com/SailorBoyMedia. Additionally, we're still producing short televised packages in partnership with Southern Oregon PBS. To learn more about that, check out sopbs.org/usasweare. For any other information or to contact us, go to sailorboymedia.com.